please.
Pennington,
Here.
Pearson,
Here.
Watts,
Here.
Bennett Johnson,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Holtz, Sallee.
Here. Establish a quorum, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Are you sure? Yeah.
Agenda item 5, seating of the new board member, oath of office.
We have a swearing in of Tina Smedley, and we're going to do it right over there by the flag. A little different because we're in a special board meeting, but Kay will take the honors.
I, Tina Smedley, hereby declare under oath that I will faithfully perform the duties as a member of the Board of Education
as a member of the Board of Education
of the Guthrie Public Schools
of the Guthrie Public Schools
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
all of the duties pertaining to said office
all the duties pertaining to said office
and obey the Constitution
and obey the Constitution
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the state of Oklahoma.
and the state of Oklahoma.
Agenda item 6, recommendation, consideration, and vote for reorganization of the board, including election of president, election of first vice president, election of second vice president, election of board clerk, deputy board clerk.
Mr. President, I nominate Terry Pennington for president of the Board of Education. Second?
Motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Pearson,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Bennett Johnson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Smedley,
Yes.
Pennington,
Yes.
Sallee.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Motion from over.
Mr. President, I nominate Gail Davis as vice president of the school.
Second?
A motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Pennington,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Watts,
No.
Bennett Johnson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Sallee,
Yes.
Smedley,
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate yourself, Travis Sullivan, for second vice president, please. Second?
A motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call.
Pennington,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Bennett Johnson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Sallee,
Yes.
Smedley,
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Jennifer Bennett Johnson for clerk of the Board of Education.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call.
Pennington,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Bennett Johnson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Sallee,
Yes.
Smedley,
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Tina Smedley as the deputy board clerk. Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call.
Pennington,
How many positions are
That's it.
there? Yes.
5.
Pearson,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Bennett Johnson,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Sallee,
Yes.
Smedley?
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 noes.
You don't have to move if you don't want to. It doesn't-
Yeah,
it-
that's good.
We probably should change the
Yeah.
the bottom of the ones that need to be changed, but,
I think this will take- Okay, I didn't even know there was
it's not required, it's just been practiced here.
What's that?
I'll move for you, last move, I'll move it's required, I'm gonna say it right here.
Yeah,
We're good.
Since you
It's a special.
you run the meeting.
You're doing pretty good there.
you're in the hot seat.
Okay. Agenda item number 7, discussion of Guthrie Public Schools long-range plan.
Boarders, you have at your seat a chart that came from Mr. Wolf, our bond advisor, and I emailed that to you as well. And also you have at your seat the schedule for election dates for 2015. After having a discussion on lots of different items, I asked Mr. Wolf to prepare a schedule that would involve a series bond in the neighborhood of 15 mills, and see what that could do if we put a series together and we would address the first item to be addressed would be the most critical items that were in the last bond issue that did not pass. The next item to be addressed would be the new elementary school with the land that we have under contract. And finally, potentially any remaining items for that school, and also some additional items that we have identified using the same list that we've used when we formulated the last bond issue. Because the needs have not changed. They are still there. And so that's what we bring to you tonight. And then what I wanted to do is pass this around. And what you have here is what you have is a spreadsheet that shows the most critical items that are on our list, along with the estimated cost of a school in the second sale. And this is a series bond issue that totals $16.2 million, with the 15.67 being the highest millage in 2016, drops to 13.98, and then 15.39 in 2018 for the payback. And essentially, if this is what you want to do and what we want to consider, it's the spreadsheet that you have in front of you is identical to what's on the screen, and then the board can decide what should go in bond sale number 3, or if items that are in bond sale number 1 are not as critical as we first thought when we formulated the last bond issue, and move them around. But those are still the items that we consider critical to on our list. And some of these you'll notice have already been eliminated based on the OG&E grant that we received. We've retrofit a lot of the lighting and taken some of that out of building fund. Some of the items in the far right column can still come out of building fund. But that's the list as it sits right now. And I had Sean from Stacy Group review the costs to make sure that those estimates were still a good estimate to use on this, and we made, we didn't make any adjustments, and then I had him also review the cost estimate on the school based on the site that we have.
So are we saying that the roofs that we went to the people last time and said were the most important things we had are all included in this first series?
Yes. The only thing taken out of the first series is the track and the technology piece.
Okay.
Everything else was left in. Is that right? Or do you want to take anything else? I think that's it.
Lighting retrofit, was it in the first one?
Yeah, we took, no, it wasn't. No. So this is essentially, the first part of this bond issue is the, I hate to say this, especially at dinner time, but it's the meat and potatoes of what we had in the last bond issue.
So with the bond sale in 15, those projects are completed in 15, and then when does the money become available? If this thing passed, say, in June?
You can close your first transaction sometime in August, maybe late July.
So then,
The 2 million proceeds will be available then. Then you wait a year basically to do the next tranche.
so we're looking at 17 probably before we would start school. Would that be accurate?
Fall of 16.
That 11.5 is a 45,000 square foot school
It was just over 50, I think was the last number we ran.
and furnishings and everything. With the bonding capacity that we have, we've got to get it all right.
Yeah, I think that includes the soft cost.
It includes soft costs.
And lagoon or whatever
It includes lagoon.
system. Because my biggest concern is when we get to bond sale number 3, that we're gonna come back and say, well, we need it for the new school. And I feel very strongly that that bond money goes back to the other schools and not to the new school. And I'm afraid that's what's gonna happen if we don't commit to something on bond 3. That all of a sudden they say, well, we need more out of the new school, and we've again ignored the rest of our school system.
My understanding is you want us to identify the bond sale number 3 tonight.
Yes, that's the point of what we want to do tonight, is move whatever items are in this far column, move them over to bond sale number 3. And that's why I've got it up on the screen in my computer right here, so that I can put, when you guys direct me with those estimates, I can just move them over in the other column, and we'll know how much money we've got there.
And I don't know what's customary,
Well,
but, you know, we want the most transparency as we can get, so we want to designate down to as many exact items as we're going to do. At least that's the way I'd like to do business. If we're asking people for money, I'm going to designate. I don't want there to be like a 30% slush fund, and you know that you know what I'm saying. I want to designate. Now I think designate as many things down to the wire. If you're asking people for their money, I mean, as close as you can get.
Well, that's why I brought it up, was because if you read on this sheet of paper here, it says in bond 3, we're construct furnish equipped elementary school. It's
And
acting like we're still carrying more over, and I wanna make sure that that's not what we're
Well,
gonna do.
and Janae, the reason it says that is because at the time, I didn't have the estimate of what the school would cost from the architects. And so I didn't know how much money we would get there. And so at the time, I asked him to put it in there like that. That's not how the language would read, since we do have enough money in that bond sale. But I didn't get the estimate from the architect until I saw what this says, and I asked Sean to go ahead and get me the estimate.
So we can strike that.
Yeah.
I guess I've got a question on the 11.5 million. You're saying 50,000 square feet, so that's over $200 a square foot.
No, I mean, you've got all the fees and
Well,
soft
fees,
costs.
I mean, everything.
We actually gave an estimate to you that's a breakdown estimate of it.
That's what I was curious what that
We
breakdown.
originally
$155 a foot. We basically increased it 5% a year, since we're gonna be 2 years out from that, so it goes up to 170 for construction costs. Then you, all your furnishings,
That includes your furnishings and fees and stuff like that. And the reason we went ahead and did 5% was because of the concern that you brought up, that we don't want to have to come back in 17 and say, oh, well, it's short because we've seen an influx. We want to make sure that you're not having to come
So
back.
what's the bid climate like? I mean, do you see this inflation continuing, or is it?
Okay. It doesn't seem to matter what the oil costs do right now. We're still seeing numbers climb. I mean,
Now, your quote of $170 a square foot doesn't include your fees or the contractor's fees?
includes the contract,
all the contractors.
it's construction.
That's actual construction.
When you bid it on bid day,
You know, I'm a novice, of course, at this, and I hate to feel like I drag you guys through, but have you guys ever seen or looked at those websites like RS Means? That gives a national average for construction of schools, and then the national average is like $122 a square foot. And I'm using 2013 figures because that's the most current that they have. Then we could base that on the increases of 8% that we've talked about before. But when you factor in architect fees and general contracting fees, it takes it up to $162 a square foot in 2013. But when you go on rsmeans.com and you go to Oklahoma specific, it's down at $111, $112 a square foot. It's quite a bit cheaper. And then when you factor in the architectural fees and the general contracting fees, it's about $130, $140 a square feet. Even though if we factor in the 8% that we talked about before us on the national average of construction cost, how come their figures are so dramatically different than yours?
I think a lot of times what you don't get in that is the whole number. They may give you the cost of the building, but not the parking lots and the drives and the sewer system, the things that are gonna go on top of that you've got in this particular case. I mean, that lagoon's $1 million by itself.
Well,
And
right.
until you back that out, that changes your, I mean, at 50,000 square feet, the quick math, on that's a lot of money per square foot right there, just on your lagoon that we're figuring in there. So, I mean, you have other factors in there. I mean, I don't do RSB, so I don't know. Our numbers were based on the bid market that we've seen and seen consistently, and we didn't increase the scope of the work or the finishes or anything different from the numbers we looked at previously with the elementary. All we did was simply apply a 5% inflation factor for each year, is all that number reflects in that upper dollar per square foot. Because we're projecting it, because I'm not Kreskin, obviously, I can't say exactly what it was, but
Right.
I'm going, and the national average is probably closer to 8%, and we're seeing more like a 4.5%, 5%, and so that's what we based it on, at that number. Just based on the climate right now, I mean, it just depends on the building. So what was some of the stuff we just did at Piedmont coming in at, it was in the 150s, right? Upper 150s, right in there. So I mean, we're seeing very similar, those are pretty consistent numbers that we're seeing right now. I haven't seen anything at $111 a square foot.
That was prior to architectural and general contracting fees being added in afterwards, you know.
And in general,
They had the 2013 numbers in a non-union shop with the GC and architect fees. Their average for Oklahoma City was 122, 2 years ago. So I guess it was kind of curious in how.
yeah, you know,
Maybe
I don't
reports to
know
that.
what that's based on. I don't know what they're basing those numbers on, because we haven't seen $122 construction cost of it.
Do you know what those Moore schools cost to rebuild?
Well, I don't know.
It's 135, wasn't it?
I don't know. I didn't do that, so I don't know all that off the top of my head.
I don't know why. The reason it concerns me, it's a lot of money for the people, and if I act like that I'm hounding you, I apologize ahead
No,
of
not
time.
at all.
But I can't see where very nice schools at Moore, which you would think would be substantially higher than Guthrie, and not to take away from
It
Guthrie.
actually kind of works the other way than that, because of your proximity to the locations, you tend to be higher than less.
Okay, so we're gonna be higher than there.
Yeah.
$40 a square foot higher?
No, but I don't know what they included in that cost.
Right, I don't-
I have no idea what they put in that, because most of the time the architect doesn't submit that cost, the school submits that cost, and you don't know how much of that was that they considered a fee, or if they bid that in a separate package and they didn't include parking lots or any of that stuff. I don't know that, so you're asking me something that I can't give you an honest answer on.
Some of those projects may or may not have been GC bid versus construction management. If it's CM, typically their fee is outside of the construction cost on bid day. So the bid cost on bid day, if we would consider construction cost, wouldn't have included their fee. So it would increase the fee higher than what you're being told the fee is.
So based on that magazine, I don't know how to answer that.
Right, I understand.
That fair.
I'd like, you know, when we met you in Pryor
Uh-huh.
and looked at that school, we had a discussion there about metal versus load-bearing masonry or block. And I'd like you to revisit that a little bit just for the rest of the board to hear, because we discussed the cost differences between that construction and steel and how they're really not that far off, but
No, in the last, probably 4 or 5 years, we have not seen a big difference in cost from steel building construction to load-bearing masonry, to more conventional construction. There are there are pros and cons to both. With a steel building, it's steel structure. You're not really using just a big old metal shop building the way that they used to do that. But you get the roof as part of that envelope package, you get insulation in there. It may not be the highest factor that we would get in more conventional construction. But we still have to meet certain load levels for lateral loads on the walls, so we have to beef up the walls when we use that steel structure. And what we have found in the last few years is the cost has been pretty well, we haven't seen a big cost difference in the two, truthfully. We just haven't seen it. If anything, I'm getting better warranties on more conventional construction and more bidders on conventional construction than we are on steel.
We actually, on the BOAG building for Norman schools, we actually bid conventional and alternate to go metal building. 2 people had separate bids, and metal building came in higher in that case.
So, and I don't know what the reason is, because 10 years ago, that wasn't the case at all. It was probably $8, $10 a square foot cheaper to go with a steel building like that. And now, right now, it's just not. We're not seeing the numbers. Some of that, I think, has to do with, on a metal building, we don't really want to put equipment on the roof, because on the steel roofs, we have a tendency, they just, if you see roof curb on and mechanical equipment on there, they fight leak issues on those metal roofs like that. And so people have a tendency to put them on the ground, which then sometimes increases the amount of ductwork. It eats up square footage in the classroom. They have to build a chase around it, or put a furnace closet in the classroom, which if they put gas in the building, changes some things up. So there's some other circumstances that may have a factor on that a little bit. But just based on the bid market we've seen recently, that's more typical. Now, I showed you the building in Pryor. At that time, it was about $136 all said and done for that particular building, and that was done in, I want to say it was around 2012 is when that building was built, as I remember. And when we're doing construction, we did projects for them last year that were after that were in the $158, $160 a square foot, that were very similar in finish level and stuff.
Now, that
like
doesn't include your fee in that price raise, right? Because all the other places that I contacted about prices per square foot, they included the general contractor and the architectural fee in the price that I was getting.
Well, that would have included the GC's cost in there, but ours is just a 6% fee of construction.
The GC's cost will be built into his,
So that's what
whatever number he bid.
so then when you make this estimate, or this projection of 11.5, when it gets time to bid or the design phase, are you gonna bid a conventional and then alternate bid for metal, and to see what the more economical
You know, we
approach
typically
is?
would just see what we've been seeing in that time period, what was getting better numbers, and that's what we would go with. And we just did a new elementary in Collinsville that we did in steel building, and it was no cheaper than new construction we were doing in fire and conventional at the same time period. It was actually a little bit cheaper for the conventional at that point in time. Right now, that's just the way things are leaning, is that's a little more economical, the block of margins, we're seeing better numbers on. Now, you get into something big, like a big open gymnasium, and actually, that's not even, there are ways, at Collinsville, we changed it up a little bit. We did the core of the building, the administrative areas, and where we could put all the mechanical equipment on that roof. We did a conventional block of Marjoy's, and then the gymnasium and the classroom things we did with steel building. So we did a combination of the two, trying to see if that would help it be more economical. In a case like a big gym that's a big open expanse, you get some value scale by having that big metal structure right there. It actually can save you some money in some of those instances. I think it's a little bit more economical. But in typical classrooms, the stuff that we did at Collinsville, I don't think it was necessarily any cheaper on the classroom wings to do so. But I think it probably saved money on the gym.
When's the last elementary school you guys built?
We've got like 4 under construction right now.
Do you have safe rooms or hardened rooms in those?
Yes.
Heritage.
Heritage we do, and Roosevelt and Pryor we do, and all the ones we've done in Edmond have safe rooms, and what we're doing, the new stuff in Pryor, we have safe rooms in those.
Does this fee that you've quoted us here include anything for safe rooms or hardened rooms at all?
I think you could do.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem to harden a couple of rooms in those, but,
And leave it at the same bid?
yeah, I think we kind of took that into, especially with that inflation factor, I think we're okay with it. And we knew that was something that was gonna be important.
I told, when we started all this, I said, you know, whatever we build new, we will need that. And another thing that I probably need to mention to the full board, we had this discussion in property committee, but we've not had it with the full board. Stacy Group right now has been going through all of our facilities that we currently have with structural engineers, and I think you got a FEMA person or something like that, don't you?
Well, we was all in FEMA trained.
You guys have been FEMA trained on this. They're going through our facilities that we have right now to determine if the safe areas we have identified are in fact the safest areas in the event of a tornado. And so that if we need to revise that, we can visit that based on what the conditions are of the building. Because, you know, where is the safe area in the building? It's here, and how do we know it's here? Because it's always been here. Well, that's really not good enough anymore. I think we learned that with more tornadoes, and that's why I've asked them to do that.
Well, what you'll see is what we will give you is the safest place currently is in the building. It really may not be safe, that safe, and it's gonna be the safest that you currently have. And we can give you some recommendations, lower cost recommendations of how to make it just a little bit better, knowing that in no place do you have is gonna be, you know, FEMA 361 guidelines. But
It all stems from the Safe Schools 101 initiative that's going on right now, and the idea is that you go into an existing building and you have professionals come in and take a look at the building and say, based on where your HVAC equipment is, the type of construction you have, the windows you have, this is the safest area within the school. It may not be the area that, you know, it's not necessarily saying it's a safe area, it's just saying within these constraints, this is the safest area within your building.
So that's a turnkey operation, desk, technology, 11.5 with safe rooms in it. How many classrooms is that?
the total number, it was
25, I think, is what we discussed.
about 500 students is what we talked about. I don't remember the actual.
No gymnasium or,
There's a gym.
there's a gym.
Yes.
Build that up, but
And we're thinking K through 4.
Depend on what our numbers are at that time. It's possibly K3, you never know. K3 or K4, depending on, because
We originally started with
we've got to have, we're increasing our capacity, but we don't know what our numbers will be by then. So,
because we originally started with K through 5, right? I mean, that's what we're on.
We're not gonna give away any of that classroom, and I don't want to sound evil for preschoolers or anything, but we're not gonna build this new classroom out there and then say we gotta have 5 of them for 4 to 4-year-olds, right?
no. No. We wouldn't.
I know.
We don't need 5, if we go neighborhood schools,
I'm not saying a word.
if we go neighborhood schools, there might be a need for 1, but it's based on capacity and demand. And if we don't have room for them, that's not required, so we peel that off. Just like we've done with any classrooms that when we needed more kindergarten classrooms in Cotterell, we've taken from the pre-K because it's not required.
Okay, I'm good.
My concern on these numbers, I mean, just our poor junior high. I mean, we've got to address something.
And I think one of the things, even the 2.9 figure, we still couldn't address that with the first phase of this, with just the outside envelope.
Well, I know,
Where the money
it is,
comes
and
in.
we're just looking at 2.7 and it's 2.9 just to,
And that's why,
Little dudes
that may be
and
worthy of discussion tonight if we want to section some of that off and do some projects at the junior high, but then we've also got the high school HVAC
that's a whole nother.
and
Technology.
and we haven't touched technology.
I know.
And it gets right back to the thing that we fought with all of this, is we have so many needs that it's hard to.
You could do quite a bit at the junior high though, with if you gave, I know everybody's screaming for money, but technology has to have a little bit of money. If you gave them $500,000 or 700,000 and then you put $1 million, if that HVAC is 1.3 at the high school, isn't that creating a problem that needs to be addressed expeditiously there at the school? I mean, the HVAC is a problem that we need to fix.
Well, we have done some work on that out of the building fund to try and improve that, and it's still a problem. Jerry's here where he can address that. It is still a problem, and some of that was a temporary fix to try to get to a bond issue, not a long-term fix. The 1.3 million is a long-term fix.
Well, I know if we do the long-term fix and we give some to technology though, we surely be able, there's many different views of what should be done with the junior high. But if we spend,
The question I have for John is,
I mean, we're keeping the junior high.
when
We've already
does
decided that.
when do we fall below our bonding capacity again? And what do the villages look like beyond 19? So at what point can we try to, are we gonna go run another election for the next project?
Well,
I've been at.
He's gonna lose that one.
No way.
He's gonna lose that battle. Sorry, Gary.
I'm just saying, I said, if we give them $1 million, they could do something with it.
Because on this projection, you have the millage in 18 at 15.39. So what does it do beyond 18, and what does our bonding capacity look like?
well, probably the next 8 years after that, we have about $16 million in capacity, actually. I have the giant spreadsheet that nobody wants to look at. But we've got the initial 25 years. To be realistic, for the next 7 or 8 years after 2018, and you're looking at about $2 million a year. And then your decision then is, what are your big dollar projects? And if you wanted to address Cotterell or some of the other schools, and you spend $6 million here and $6 million here, then you only have over 8 years about 17, 18 million over 8 years. So you got to decide which schools to get. Now, I actually, a couple of, the last analysis I did would address 10 and 15 mils and gradually going to 20 mils. If you're at 15 meals for a while, that number's probably, I had to go into 20 meals in about 4 or 5 years, under the last request that we had. Well, once we get the confidence of the community, and let's move up to 20. That figure probably drops for the next year, 8 years, down to about 14 million over the next 8 years, if you stay at 15 meals. There's just not a,
But it gets spread out about $2 million a year, so.
yeah, and.
If you're looking at junior high renovation, you're having to piecemeal it.
Yeah.
Because that's 15 right there. I mean, you know, to fix the junior, and that was 2 years ago.
Eight,
Or
eight or
a year
nine.
ago. It'll be 20 million by the, or, not five.
That's fine, I know that's kind of beyond this scope of what we're talking about here, but I think it's important to consider.
Yeah, what's
What do we do?
next? What's the next column look like, so we know what needs to go in that column?
I have some questions for the brains back here. So I asked you, the laptops that we're currently using at the high school, what do those run us? If we were to supply the entire high school with a laptop, which would cut down, I assume, on cost of textbooks, because we would be doing most of our stuff on the laptop? That sound right to you all over here, that
You could guess for, let's say, a laptop like Dr. Simpson has in front of him, about $1,000 a piece.
I don't wanna give them one that nice.
So,
Come on, we're talking about students. What are the ones that we have on the pads at the high school right now? I mean, we don't have that kind of money.
I don't know what's at the high school.
Huh? They got those,
We've bought some refurbished ones that were in the,
my laptop didn't cost $1,000, and I bought it.
$400 range.
A good figure is probably about $500, $600 for a laptop. What were the ones running that you priced for the teachers?
I wanna say they were $8,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay. But one thing to remember that I'll mention is and this is something that don't kill the messenger, I'm just throwing the facts here. Textbooks electronically are still virtually the same price as buying them in a book. The companies have not backed off of the pricing on that.
Can't we hack into something?
Well, that's like $1,000 laptop. Well, we just cut him out of his money right there.
I guess,
I was gonna have to get these,
You know,
sorry, you blew it.
here's the thing, we know we need some technology money. We know that we have more needs than we can address here tonight, because you can look at that column totals $8 million. What is it total?
You've got that junior high and the technology in there.
And you have approximately, you got about 2.7 million, and you got 100,000 and 12 grand on those other two columns. $100,000 is not a lot of contingency on an $11.4 million building, but it is there. What you're looking at on that far right column, those are the things we've identified that are the critical needs that are next.
I guess one of the questions I would have is, in the junior high, there's 2.9 million. Should that be piecemeal like that, or should we wait until
Did we not?
19 to?
Well, and all that is doing the waterproofing and the windows. That is just the envelope of that building. And that's that's not a full renovation of that building by any stretch. And
I mean, that would help like the mold and all those.
I guess what I'm asking is it has economical to do part of renovation now and then more later, or do we wait and do it all at once?
will it cost us more, Sean, to just do the waterproofing, or the waterproofing in the windows is
It's
what?
always more when you break it up. because you're gonna have, you're mobilized once, and you're gonna get some.
That's why I'm asking, do we,
But, you can't do it, I mean, you can phase it in the way you need to, but if you break it up and spread it out, then it'll work out.
but I guess is there a way in 3 years or 4 years to try and do it all at once? Or is there not going to be enough money available as far as our bonding capacity goes to do something like that all at once?
On the bonding capacity, we're looking at the two key factors, what your NAV growth is gonna be. Your NAV, as everyone knows, has dropped because of the change in assessment ratio. We assume 4% a year for the next 2 years for the next 3 years, to get to the numbers that you have in front of you tonight. So unless something happens and you grow at 8%, which I don't see anything telling me that you know, the 16.2 laid out as is it.
And we might get a little bit of money if the interest rates don't go up, how you've got them, but not, there's not a lot.
But it's, well, the mill, the schedule that you have in front of you shows that after you do the 2.7, you got a whopping $65,000 left of bonding capacity. That's tight. And if the NAV doesn't grow by 4%, you don't have the money you have in front of you at 16.2. You may only have 16 million. We just need to see what the NAV is going to do. But that's
So this is an estimation that there'll be 2.7 million, correct?
right. We're assuming that. It's not a guarantee. It depends on what your NAV is.
So what we need to do is find somewhere around $2.5 million. And we have experts in the room tonight, and we have all these lists up there. Where can you best use $2.5 million? So we don't need to beat this out for 4 or 5 months or 4 or 5 hours. We asked our experts in technology, our experts in building in here, and our experts in education, what do we need to spend that third year on? Or ask the other board members and poll and see what you think. And let's, get the cart going.
Gary, tell us about the windows at the junior high.
They're approximately 1978. I think they were put in a bond issue. They're just a hollow metal window that has no artifacts in it. They're old. All of the weather stripping that was ever original to them is gone. And then the fit to the mortar and everything like that, that's part of the tuck pointing and the window replacement, that would take care of that part of it. The outside envelope that they talked about.
I mean, I don't know how you would do like half the windows. I mean, I guess if that's all you.
I think that was, my guess is that would significantly cost us more if we just did half of them and then half of them.
Well, let's ask the expert before we decide on the windows. Jerry, you're the building guy, up there right now, life safety or life issues or school learning issues, what's the most important thing in the fourth column that needs to be done? And since technology's probably in the fourth, we're gonna have,
Windows is the highest on my list.
which one?
Waterproofing and windows.
You think that's above the junior high's HVAC, I mean, the high school's HVAC and the issues it's causing?
It's pretty close. There's a lot of moisture penetration at the junior high.
Well,
Down those basement rooms. It's,
The high school center section, it's bad. It's not gonna be that much money. It's not gonna be as much as the junior high.
Right, but if you have, we're going to have 2.7, if I understood the council, 2.7 or less. So we need to come up with 2.5 million. Can you envelope the junior high for 2.5 million? And their figures are no, it's 2.9, right? So if it's gonna cost us more, maybe we wait a year and then do it the next year when you have the Counselor, didn't you say 2 million a year?
We'll have it the next year.
Next year you can do about 2.2 million, or no,
Have
about
less.
1.8 million the next year.
super hot button, but the millage, I mean, I know we're at your numbers are at 15. I mean, if we bump that millage up to, 16 or 17, because we're still below. And here again, I think this is how we need to educate our community and put those numbers out there, because, hello, we're at 0. I mean, what our neighboring towns are, I mean, we've seen those numbers. At 15, we're still a lot below what's like Piedmont now, they're probably high, I know Deer Creek's at 36, Edmonds probably at 20. Yeah,
25.
And they're able to pass, $90 million and not increase because of the millage thing. If we would increase that millage even to 18, still be below 20, we'd still be below everybody. I know we've done these, numbers, but, somehow we've got to come up with a few more dollars, in my opinion.
One of the things that John and I had spoken about was start with this and then take the step at the next election to increase the millage.
You've got to build trust and confidence
Yeah.
with the population.
And the millage here is at 15.67, which is, there are going to be people who are going to say that's 16 mils already. That's
Well, then
just.
let's do 15.99.
But that's, so, John, I know you're dying to say something, but I want to interject.
Well, I just wanted to address that over the next 5 years, mill levy is not gonna be your issue, it's your debt cap that's gonna be your issue. You're taking on $11.5 million for the elementary school. And so the way we structured the last analysis for Dr. Simpson was, let's use as much of our estimated bonding capacity as possible for the next 5 years, which goes beyond this. And the 2 years after that, we start inching up a little bit on the mill levy, but our bonding capacity, I only show that after 16.2, you can do $4 million the next 2 years after that. And we have your mill levy.
Total or each year? Just total?
Total, $1.8 million, and the year after, the next year, 18 or 19, and then 2.2 after that. So that's another $4 million, but you're pushing the debt cap still. And so you go up until your mill levy goes up to like 17 mils, then we have it go to 20. Kind of talking about what you're doing. But even if we went to 30, your debt cap stops you. You can't go there. You can't get any more than $4 million because you're at your debt cap again. It's,
That's $4 million in approximately 15 mil levy? Or
well, actually,
17?
I had, when you did $1.8 million, I had you jump your mill levy up to about 17.25 mils.
But with this authorization here, if this should just pass and go to election, beyond 18 is a decline in the levy, unless we replace it.
Unless you replace it.
And we'd be full.
Right, and these are just, 40 different iterations that we've done, and we thought, all right, let's see how we can get as much as we can on your debt cap, and then understanding that your 15 mils level is going to restrict you in the future, but as the President stated, we got to get confidence, and then you're not sacrificing anything on this election as far as mill levy. You're as far as, well, if we'd asked for more mill levy, we would have got more. No, you wouldn't have gotten that. Your debt caps are restricted.
There's another thing I wanted to ask too, Mike, is there's another piece of this, and that is the building fund. Is there a way we can project what the building fund revenues are going to be in the next 3 years and maybe identify the project potentially we can pay for on this list from that building fund?
Dennis and I kind of kicked that around, and I think our building fund, right now, we were at, what, 640 for this year? And 640,000. Obviously, this year we took the chunk that's going to pay for the land. And then after that, some of these things that we have identified in this column obviously could be building fund items and probably should be.
Like exterior doors.
So you could do the junior high though, with like 2.5 million from the bond and then the rest from the building fund too, right? Now, that's an issue
That's a, remember that the total that we have is 640,000, not, and we use that, that's not, remember, we gotta buy the toilet paper and the
that, right,
wipes.
I'm just trying to find a way to let them get their junior high stuff.
Yeah, interior, the interior locks, the track repair, things like that. Things that we have been doing, we redid the softball field, we did the bleachers in the gym, we did the carpet and the flooring at Guess and Central, and we've done those things already, each summer, some projects out of that building fund too, so that are tangible for spaces where we put the kids.
So if everybody would talk, speak up, the 3 or 4 of you have it, we could find 2.7 million in that list and walk out of here tonight in agreement what this bond needs to do and get this ball rolling without having to meet more than an hour.
Well, and this gets
You're
to
done.
what our president is, the point he's making. I want to reemphasize the schedule we have here too. This is a very important timeline because there's some things to consider. The city is going to, from what I understand, they are planning to go ahead and run a sales tax without us in June. Okay, so if you look carefully at this schedule, and we run an election on May 12th, we have to have the resolution approved by this board and at the courthouse by March 12th. So that is a very, very tight timeline, and that is why time is of the essence if we're going to do that. In addition to this, I'm not real high on the idea of running a bond election, school bond election during the summertime. Because I think we have potential for parents to be out of town on vacation and things along those lines.
Educators.
And
Yes.
is this 6 months after,
Yes.
is this right at 6 months?
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, I think that's real important that we're not, I mean, we've gotta do it. We've gotta do it. Okay, cool.
And-
No,
And
we
if we don't-
need to find 2.7.
Then if we don't do it in May, then we're looking at August.
Yeah, I mean, August would be a great time, I mean, that would be the
Or September.
the optimal time back to school.
But that's why I put this together like this, so that you guys can identify it, and I can just sit here and cut and paste here. and
So
look at
Jerry,
columns.
if we don't have the money for the junior high, you said that the high school HVAC is close to the junior high, correct? Therefore, it's my assumption that if we can't do the junior high, it's gonna go up if we split it, we should do the high school HVAC. I'm sure there's some of the monetary needs at the junior high we can meet other than,
Well, we're within 200,000 of the junior high project, so if it is that important, I have a hard time believing we can't find 200,000 out of a $16 million authorization. I mean, is that a fair statement, or?
But you're not doing anything else too. And we haven't talked about technology.
But then if we talk about the building fund, that's, well, maybe we want to pay for it. I don't, let's put it up for discussion,
I mean,
I've already played these games in my head,
Yeah,
and that's
here I
why
go.
I need to
mean,
let you guys
we've got to do
guide.
something about technology, especially, I mean, because in my mind, I was kind of on the back burner with that, thinking, that's what we would use if we were united with the city, but I was unaware of, that's why I haven't been talking about technology, but if that's not gonna happen, then yeah, that,
Okay, if you do the high school HVAC, that leaves about 1.3 million out of the 2.7.
and the rest of it has to be technology.
there's not anything at the junior high that needs to be fixed, like hot water?
Like
say?
everything.
Well, but the thing is, yeah, it's,
Not doing it for 4 years.
and so.
That's what I'm saying, do you think there's something we could do there, short of putting off for 4 years? I mean, we don't even have hot water in the junior high.
I think trying to get hot water in that building would be,
That's gonna be phase two, probably,
well, yeah, that would be, that's we don't even know where the sinks might be when we renovate. When we do the full-scale renovation on the inside. That's why we ended up on the envelope on the outside for what we're talking about here.
So if we had 600 plus thousand in the building fund, how much do we spend annually? Half of that on operational expenses?
We, just on routine operations, it's about $275,000. Normally then, we'll have emergencies like the HVAC emergencies and stuff that we've had, it's gonna run you $100,000 to $150,000. Maybe less some years, maybe more, so you're spending $400 a quarter.
So best
right
case,
there.
you're looking at 200,000 a year, so 600,000.
And,
Play with there.
and one thing to think about, because Dennis mentioned HVAC, all of the units that we're talking about that have gone bad were part of the bond issue where they were installed in '96. Is that correct, Jerry? So we're starting to see failure of those from the 1996 bond issue. And there's no reason to think that won't continue because of their age.
Well, Jennifer, Sharon, okay, I have a memory of a bark repair, so you're gonna have to turn that around for at least a couple of days. At least 2 days. Okay. I was gonna say Miss Smedley, but I like that. Can I call you Tina?
Absolutely.
Hey, Tina, what, you guys tell us. Why, I did. 1.3, why don't we, it's not, we gotta get on the stick for these kids and these guys and everybody else and get this fight started. 1.3, do you guys think we should put the high school HVAC over in there? I can't take a vote, right, but I can, can I get an opinion?
Paper if you want, slide it over there.
Yeah. Okay, so,
My approach, whenever I'm working it out in my head, was to address the high school HVAC issues. Throw $1 million at the junior high for whatever we can address right away. And then we can either lower that and put $750 towards the junior high and bump up technology to $500,000. And that puts us roughly about 2.5. That was just
what do you think of that, Ms. Davis?
scribbling on the paper.
Is that okay?
That was how much for the junior high?
$1 million?
$750 to $1 million, depending on if you wanted to drop it down, put $500,000 towards the technology. So anywhere
Well, I
from
definitely agree the
750
HVAC system at the high school is a dire.
I do too, I agree with that.
Well, no, your daughter's leaving the junior, the high school now, so.
Well, and on the building envelope on the junior high, we could tuck point part of the building and replace the windows and do it section at a time, maybe an area at a time.
Most critical.
And try to break that back where it's not all or
I
nothing.
mean, because when you think of the junior high, you know, there are a lot of windows.
Yeah, there's multiple phases when that was built.
So $1 million would get you a good start.
Well, yeah, you can.
And the reason it's so expensive is it's all on your ground. I mean, it's not just, most of it is digging out all the way to the street and repairing foundations all around, so it's not just above ground quick
Make it
fix.
look pretty, yeah.
Well, I know the waterproofing and the windows are lumped together. I mean, what, if you divided, is it possible to divide those two projects?
Absolutely, we can find
So
those critical.
what would the waterproofing cost?
I have to break that out, I don't know.
But I would just think, you know, to do all that
Probably
digging.
don't want to address one without the other.
Well, that's, yes, I mean, that would be my next question.
And that's why we were saying
Yeah,
doing
next
phases, I would
Doing
say,
phases.
I would think it'd be smarter to go, okay, we're gonna take this portion of the building, we're gonna tuck point in the windows here, and the next phase we'll do this portion of the building.
And that was-
That makes a whole lot more sense than
Then
replacing
to
windows. and-
separate them and do one or the other.
Fix the brick, put the windows in.
You won't put brand new handles on an
Right.
overhaul.
Right.
You
You gotta protect protect the outside, then you protect the inside.
Right, you gotta stop the damage.
Bottom line,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I would say just break it up into parts and pieces.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so,
So,
And what about technology?
okay, what I've got up there right now, $1 million at the junior high, 1.326500 for high school HVAC, and 500,000 for technology.
Well, my figure was 750 if we're gonna do $500,000 in technology, if we're gonna stay within that 2.7 million.
he wants us to stay within the 2.7 because we might not have 2.7,
Oh,
correct?
that's too bad.
Yeah.
We'll go to 750 at the junior high, is that what you said?
Yeah, 750 total.
And if we do have more, can we say that it will go to the junior high? If we do?
You're then what,
Yes.
126?
How arbitrary are these numbers at the junior high? I mean, do we even know what we're getting for $750,000? How much of a project? I mean,
Well, it is an arbitrary number, but we can do a lot for that number. I mean, whatever we have is what we have. That's all that's left, we have to
We'll just have
do
to,
whatever we can.
we can look more specifically at certain areas, and we can even do that where you did it as an alternate bid, that we go, this section of the building is base bid, and this section is an alternate to try to get your number accordingly.
Because we'd like to be, I would like personally to be around 90% identified areas. Because there, isn't 90 better as a transparency, just tell the people. You don't want to say, well, here's 70% of what we're spending our money on and keep a slush fund. I
No.
want to identify everything we can.
And it's not a slush fund, but what you do want to maintain the flexibility on is if something comes in under budget, you want to be able to utilize that for something that might be over budget, because again, these are estimates.
Well, I
And some of
use
this
that term.
is 3 years out.
I use that term slush fund just to,
Procurement.
arbitrarily. My thought was, if we get, I'm a big advocate of being a steward of the people's money, and if we can identify out in the open publicly what we're gonna do with it, be honest about it, the closer we can be.
Okay, so that, if we do, so then we will have touched every school, is that correct?
We
Is there
will
any-
not have touched Cotterell, we will not have touched Favor, and we will not have touched, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? I think Cotterell and Favor. Yeah. Yeah, I just think piecemeal. But again, we've had the discussion about whether or not we want to,
Invest
what the sustainability of Cotterell is.
Well, that's open for discussion on multiple locations probably, but.
Well, I don't know. We don't need to fight it.
I know, that's why I said,
We're stuck with it.
let's agree that this is what we'd like you to march forward with. We can't take a vote on that.
I've got a question for Mike. Mike, with this scenario here, how do you feel about it? Do you have any concerns? Or any recommendation of your own?
I really like it because what we might lose in a little bit of added expense at the junior high, we don't really know. But I can tell you that the longer we wait on the high school HVAC, the greater problem I think exists there. And, I hear, we did some things to try to fix it. We spent a significant amount for a building fund expenditure. We spent a significant amount of money on that this year. But until we fix it the right way, that affects learning. I'm a big believer in indoor air quality, and that affects learning, and that suffers there. I think the $750,000, if we look at it carefully on the most pressing parts of that building and try and determine that and prioritize that, we can get some bang for our buck on the $750. And 500,000 is not near enough for technology, but it's 500,000 more than we've got right now. And then I think the other items, some of those I'd already identified as building fund type projects anyway. And, but I left them on there because I wanted you guys to have the same list. And so I guess to answer your question, Travis, I'm good with this, because I think we can work with this, and it will enhance the facilities that we have. Now, the next part of this is timeline on, do we want to run a May election?
Yes.
And I think it's good that we do.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I was intentional about getting us together tonight, so that I can get my marching orders from you and we can get to moving on this thing.
I have two questions if we're gonna run a May election. One, I guess it's not the school board who has consulted or talked to the public relations firm. Is it the intention to, I would like it, say what I said last year again, if we put this board out, this bond issue, it needs to be every person on this board fighting for it. If we have anything we don't agree with, we need to do it before we do that. And I would like to stress again my opinion about taking our issues to the people and going south and going to all these locations. And if I'll go down there where the people that don't like the taxes are and they want to scream, they can scream at me. I'm a big boy. I am it. I just want us to get out and start talking to these people, make a commitment to have 3 board members have a few public meetings, and take the superintendent to a few of them, and you might not want to go to all of them, because there's going to,
I'm a big boy too.
I just want to get this word out this time, instead of, we kind of sat on our duffs and we didn't have the things that we needed to do last time, and I don't want to do that. I don't like getting slapped in the face twice.
Can I ask one question? I mean, I totally agree with Mr.
Thank
But
you.
I'm going back to this, this like little bit of contingency, and when you're doing all the bond language, I mean, I know these are good numbers, but, maybe they're having a sale on replacement windows or something, and these numbers come in lower. If in bold print, not little fine print, because we need to be transparent, but if there's like any money left over that we say it's used for technology, that we're not, I mean, to me, as close we can get to that number, I mean, I wanna spend all our dollars.
By law, and Gail, by law, and
You
I
know,
realize you guys haven't been through this, once you complete a project, if there is money that was identified for that
It
project,
has to be for that project?
no.
Oh.
Once you complete a project, if you have money remaining that was earmarked for that project, it can go to any project the school district wants as a legal expenditure for the district. Correct, Dennis?
Well, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, 85% has to be spent on the specific
But
projects.
if the project is
Unless they can
completed-
be done for less, but they still have to be spent for what was in the general terms of
In
the
the
bond.
proposition,
Okay.
it has to go back to that.
So,
Okay.
so
So
do we need to put a
anything,
line
so we
on-
got technology in there.
Technology's in
But,
there. So we're okay.
but-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that,
anything that,
But our proposition will be broad enough if you want to move from one school to the other, because we're going to talk about general, in the proposition language, not it down to 70%. In the proposition language, we're going to have, just exactly like we had last time.
Which was too broad for our electorate here.
Well, if you put in a proposition, first of all, you won't state in the proposition, and you can't say, we're going to spend exactly 11.5 on the, that's a whole different ballgame. Because then you will be limited to that period.
What I would like, and I'd like to reiterate what I said earlier, I don't want to see, nor will I take part in any way of or with or around or be close to that broad legal language that allows us to be wiggle worms. If I shake your hand and look in the eye, that's what you get. And if that's what we're doing when we put our names on this, I want it to be as pointed and as close to and not have that ability to have a 30% here or there slush is what I'm talking
I
about.
guess it kind of begs the question, because I mean, we'll identify the projects, but I assume, how much did you inflate these numbers on these estimates?
Like in the elementary school, we put 5% per year.
It's 10%, he said that earlier.
I know, but you're assuming those numbers are real, so
Right.
even though I would assume you have some more cushion built in just for,
I think we had a contingency built into that entire sheet, I don't remember if it's 5%. Design contingency, you know, again, like.
so it's pretty tight.
We didn't-
We didn't build it.
We didn't put a big, no,
Yeah.
there's not like.
30% in there, no.
Okay.
I'll be candid, what we're dealing with, you guys have seen some of it. I'm sure you got let in on the emails and the ads and the stuff that we're getting hammered for being too broad and too this, that, and the other, but the way Ken, I just, you know, I know we need, I'd like to go more if there's leftover money to technology, and I'll go for that. But we're getting accused of, you know, just throw enough of it on the walls of poli-sci major, and some of it might stick, but God, you know, I'm just saying, can't we write this and be as honest as we can, or, I mean, I don't like this, we have a lot of wiggle room in the last one, didn't we?
No.
Last one I thought was very specific.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about the roof buildings, I'm talking about the last bond school construction issue we
I
had.
gave the proposition to you.
Oh, the
That,
$96
no, the
million
eight, yeah, the
money?
$96 million
No,
dollars.
that's, remember, we've got a different bond council and
We're-
different
we're
architect
not
and
even
all that
going
stuff.
I'm not talking about the last one you did for 2.4, I was happy with that.
He didn't do the other one.
Oh, I thought it was him.
No, no, we changed all of that.
Okay, because that
If you were
96,
happy with it, then we're happy,
That's
right?
beat up by
It's the same guys.
None of us were here for the 96.
okay.
We missed that one.
Oh,
I
you
think
didn't
we
miss
would
much.
be if we passed it.
You didn't miss much, and I'm sorry I grouped you in there, I thought you were the same guy. Okay. Like me again.
Everybody's new, everybody.
Okay, well then, we're done.
So, we want a May 15th, or what is it, May 12th election.
Yep.
And so, we will, we'll work with Mr. Wolf and Stacy Group to make that happen. Okay, Mr. President, next item on the agenda.
Yeah, you're not.
Is there any motions?
You need to just say, there is a motion to adjourn.
I need to say what?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I know it says adjourn, but I mean, I thought somebody'd say make a motion to adjourn.
You have to
I
ask.
have to do it?
You
Would
have to
somebody like
ask.
to make a motion to adjourn? I gotta lead you by the hand. Okay.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Pearson,
Yes.
Watt,
Yes.
Minnick,
Yes.
Davis,
Well, Chris,
Yes.
Lee, Smedley,
Yes.
Pennington.
I vote to go home.